As men, we are great at vetting other men, right? Whether it's a new friend or a business partner, we put them through the ringer. We see what they're all about. We check their skills, their strengths, their weaknesses before we ever trust them. And for good reason. But when a beautiful babe walks into that room, it's like all of that goes out the window. You're sucked in by her eyes, her legs, her big old boobies, her tight ass, and suddenly now you are rolling out that red carpet. No questions asked. And that is a huge mistake. So let me tell you about a friend of mine when I was living in Japan. He started dating this beautiful Japanese girl, and she was, seemingly bubbly, fun, and really great to be around. So they ended up getting married. And that is when things went downhill. She started drinking a lot. She got violent and was throwing dishes and even punching him. Okay? He ended up staying with me for a week to try and figure out what to do. But guess what? He stayed with her. Why? Because he could not let go of how hot he thought she was. He put up with all of her chaos because he was mesmerized by her looks. And this is exactly what I'll be sharing with you today. How to avoid falling into the same trap and start vetting women properly, even if it's not as extreme as his situation, so you can save yourself from months, even years of unnecessary drama. When you meet a woman who's got that smile and that body that just does it for you, it's very easy to forget everything else. And I have been there myself, guys. We've all been there at some point. You meet this woman who's just gorgeous, who just seems to light up the room with her looks, and suddenly everything else just fades away. You're so focused on her appearance that you forget to consider anything else. How does she treat others? How she fits into your life? What her personal beliefs are? How well she gets along with her family? And even, is she someone who's worth building together with? Physical attraction is a powerful force. It is definitely what draws a man to a woman initially, but it can also be blinding if you let it control your decisions. Too many guys out there, they rush into letting her into their life without thinking it through. You think that she's so hot that you want to make her yours ASAP, and you're infatuated, and before you know it, she's not just someone that you're dating casually. Now she's in your life, she's in your space, and all of your time is now involved around her. You've let her in without stopping to ask yourself, is she a good fit for my life? Is this someone I should be investing this much time and energy into and building something meaningful with? Guys, skip this vetting process, and that is where the chaos begins. You get blinded by her beauty, and before you know it, you're dealing with drama. There's chaos and there's personality clashes that you could have avoided if you just slowed down and vetted her properly. Instead of seeing her as she truly is, you're caught up in how good she looks. Maybe she has emotional baggage that you just completely ignore. Or maybe she's emotionally unstable, but you think to yourself, nah, I can handle it. It'll be different with me. You think that you're special, that you'll change her. Or maybe she's just not the right fit for you, period. But by the time you realize this and accept it, you are now knee deep in all sorts of drama. Maybe it's her crazy mom or her alcoholic father, or it could be even her own drinking problem where she can't even hold a job down. And this is the problem that you chose to ignore because she was just so hot. And I've coached guys who've done this. All of this can be avoided if you just took a step back and slowed down, but you were too focused on what was right in front of you. You have to start treating the women you let into your life with the same level of scrutiny that you'd give to any other important decision, okay? Because think about this. You would not hire someone for an important job just because they look the part, right? Well, that would be part of it, but you'd interview them, you'd check their resume, and you'd figure out if they were actually qualified. Except in this day and age where it's very woke, and where people are hired based on everything but their qualifications. That might not be true, but hey, that is a different topic for a different video. But anyway, you should be doing the same thing with women you allow into your life, okay? Ask yourself, does she share your values? Does she show you respect? How does she act when things don't go her way? Does she genuinely like you? Think about these things before you invest your time and energy into a girl. So I want to talk about 4 things that happen when you don't vet her like you should that will lead to a lot of bullshit in your relationship. But if you can slow down and pay attention to these things, you'll be putting yourself into a much better place when it comes to who you're getting into a relationship with, okay? Number one, you ignore the red flags. Those good old red flags, okay? Now, there are the obvious ones, like she's rude to the waiter when you're at dinner, or maybe she constantly talks down to other people, acting like she's better than everyone else. I mean, to me, these are very basic things. They're obvious, and you should notice these things before you even think about asking her out. Because if she acts like this, you need to just simply move on. I mean, don't be hanging out with women who behave like this. So let's look at the red flags that might be harder to see, okay? One of them is she's always the victim. And this one is pretty common. When she tells you things about her past, every story somehow paints her as the victim. Whether it's about her ex, her friends, her coworkers, it's never her fault. She's always been wrong. And at first, you might really feel for her and show some empathy towards her situation. But over time, this can reveal a pattern of avoiding accountability. Now, we all know accountability and women go together like oil and water. For many of them, not all, okay, not all of them like that, but for many of them, it's simply a part of who they are. And of course, because so many dudes are soft simps and let her get away with bad behavior, patterns like this continue. But if you ignore those signs that she's got a victim mindset, then later on down the line, she might be great at deflecting blame and making you feel like you need to be her savior. And you may not catch on right away because, playing that sympathy card is very effective. You feel for her. But in reality, you're being set up for future drama where she never takes responsibility. Another red flag is subtle controlling behaviors where she's not outright telling you what to do, but you notice little things, like maybe she jokes about how you should dress a certain way or comments on how you spend your time, giving these backhanded compliments like, oh, you're hanging out with them again? Or if you've got a hobby that she's not into and says something like, oh, there you go again with your little hobby. She's like very belittling. And it doesn't come off as demanding or aggressive right away, but over time, these small, subtle comments start to influence your decisions and your behavior. You think that you're the one making choices, but in reality, she is slowly steering you in the direction that she wants. And eventually down the line, you'll get resentful about this. At first, you might brush it off as her just having preferences, but this can be an early sign of controlling tendencies. You're the man, you're the leader, and you should not be allowing a woman to shame you out of your own hobbies. You want to be with a girl who supports your interests and the things that you are passionate about, not some chick who's trying to get you to stop being the man that you are. But what do a lot of men do in these situations, especially when she's really, really hot? Well, you ignore it. Why? Because you're so focused on how good she looks that you brush these things off. You tell yourself, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, look at her. She's so gorgeous, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. Those little red flags, they're gonna grow into full-blown problems later. What starts as these cute little preferences will eventually grow to her disdain for you and you being miserable because you've handed over your balls early on in the relationship. The second thing that men do is you project your own feelings onto her. Here's where a lot of guys mess up. You're really into her, so you automatically assume that she feels the same way about you. You're thinking, man, she is amazing and we are hitting it off. But in reality, she's probably giving you lukewarm responses at best. She might enjoy the attention, but she's not as invested as you are. You've built up this whole narrative in your head where she's just as into you, but you're not seeing things clearly. When you start projecting your own excitement and feelings onto her, you miss the reality of how she's actually behaving. And that is a dangerous place to be because you're setting yourself up for disappointment when things don't progress the way you expect. When you first interact, she might be really into it, like texting you often, she's showing interest and making plans, but then she starts to pull back, okay? Maybe she takes longer to reply. Maybe she cancels last minute, or she goes MIA for a few days. Okay, these are subtle little things because she'll come back just enough to keep you hooked, giving you, mixed signals. But this inconsistency shows a lack of investment. or that you're not her priority, man. You're second fiddle. But if you're overly focused on how attractive she is, you might brush it off as just saying, convincing yourself that she's just busy or she's just playing hard to get. No, dudes, absolutely not. This is a sign that you are into her way more than she is into you, okay? A woman who likes you will make it very obvious. You will not be wondering whether or not she likes you. It'll be very clear. Third, you rush into a relationship. You are so hooked on her looks that you skip the part where you make sure she's actually compatible with you long term. And before you know it, you are in a full-blown relationship. And you've never even asked yourself if she's a good fit for your life. You didn't stop and rationally think about it. You let your emotions guide you. Is she someone who aligns with your values, your goals, and your lifestyle? You've skipped all these important questions because you were so focused on keeping her around. And then guess what? Months later down the line, when the novelty of her looks wears off and the real relationship issues start surfacing, you're going to be wondering, how did I miss those signs? And that is obviously because you rushed in without doing your due diligence, okay? All right, the fourth and final thing for today is you justify her bad behavior. And this, my friends, is where things get really messy. Maybe she talks down to you, maybe she makes snide comments or disrespects you in subtle different ways, but instead of calling it out, you make excuses for her, okay? You say things like, she's just having a bad day, or she didn't mean like that. And it's because you're so fixated on how good she looks that you ignore the fact that she is treating you poorly. How many of you guys have done this, okay? You've put your balls in a jar and handed them over to her, okay? So you need to have some self-respect and stand up for yourself, because if you don't, you are now inviting all sorts of bullshit into your life. And the longer you let it slide, the worse that it gets. It starts really small, which is what makes this thing dangerous, because you let it slide, but eventually these little issues snowball into a full-blown drama that you're going to really struggle to escape from. And by then, you're going to be stuck in this destructive cycle. You can't leave the relationship, all because you could not look past her looks. So, what can you do about this? Now, I'm not saying don't date beautiful women. Absolutely not. Go out with gorgeous girls, date hot women, enjoy your time together. But here's what separates the men who level up from the ones who get stuck. They slow down. They don't let looks cloud their judgment. You've got to ask yourself the tough questions. Is she a good fit for your life? Does her character match her beauty? Or are you ignoring the signs because you're distracted by how she looks and you just want to get your dick wet? Like I said, we've all been there before. We've all been transfixed by a hot girl and made some bad decisions because of it, okay? But if you really want to level up, it's time to stop ignoring the red flags and start thinking long term. So guys, what is a red flag that you have ignored in the past? Let me know down in those comments and let's talk about it. And if you want to learn how to better yourself and understand the skills that will make you a man that will attract better quality women into your life, go grab my free guide. It is called the Gentleman's 12-Point Checklist to Dropping Panties, and you can get that down in the link below. All right, that is it for today. I will see you in the next video. Cheers.